Hello and welcome back to Serious About Rugby League's podcast. Once again, me and Dan are here to catch you up with all the latest in Rugby League. So let's jump right back into it. And we're going to look at Super League's opening day fixtures. We're going to start with the Sky game, Warrington versus Leeds, on the Thursday night. Warrington at home to the champions. Big game. What's going to happen?
Well, opening fixture, as you say, and invariably Leeds often lose at the Halliwell Jones, so it doesn't bode well. I mean, usually, we've both tipped Leeds for big things this year, following on from last year, but as a Leeds fan, I never feel that confident going over to Warrington. And I've not committed to a loss for Leeds, but I'm more swinging towards Warrington. I don't know what you're thinking. I think they'll pull it out of the bag on the opening day.
Yeah, I think Warrington have, other than last season, obviously, they have this tendency to really turn up in these early fixtures and start to scare teams early doors. I think Warrington are the pick for me. I've been to this opening day fixture a few times. Me and my friends at uni have dedicated the last couple of years to going as a group. So I'll be going to the game again. I'll be sat at stud, in the Leeds end with my uni friends. And I've always predicted this game right. I've gone for a 2-point swing both years with Warrington and Saints, and I think it's going to be another opening day defeat for Leeds. I think Warrington have just improved a little bit too much on home soil. The fans will be a bit more interested in it, a bit more invested. Maybe a 4-point victory for Warrington, but it'll be a close game. It'll be a good game, a good way to start the season. So there's another game on the Thursday night, and that's Hull here at home to Huddersfield, the town we're currently sat in. What do you think?
I think I can only see that going one way. I'm sure you'll be much the same. Goes the way of the black and whites. Huddersfield looking to improve on last season, but I think starting away at Hull, there's fewer tougher starts to a season, isn't there? Jermaine McGillivray has been named in the squad, but how much of a difference that'll make overall, I can't see it happening.
Yeah, I think Huddersfield just maybe 3 or 4 players short of a real shot in the top 8s. I think Hull are a top club. They're a club that's going to be up there, and they're going to be fighting with the likes of Leeds, Saints, Wigan, Warrington, Castleford. So I think Hull are going to have a strong start, and I think in front of a home crowd that's sold over 13,000 tickets. I saw that this morning. So Hull are the pick. I think that's a sensible choice for now. But Huddersfield, you never know. With the likes of Jake Mamo, if he turns up, if he's back in the game. Jermaine McGillivray has been named, as you said. He could score a couple. They get on top early. They might be able to dominate Hull. Moving to Friday night, we're looking at the Sky game once again. And we've got both of our picks for Super League success versus last year's league leaders at St Helens. I am going to put my neck on the line and say Saints are going to have a very, very tough game, and they're going to walk away with a couple of tries in victory. I think a good 12, 14 points, and I think it's going to be a safe victory for St Helens at home.
Yeah, once again, the same with Warrington. I'm just swinging towards Saints against Castleford, obviously. Looking to continue what they built in 2017, but a couple of big signings. Expect Wormsley and Roby, a couple of other lads, Ben Barber, to really shine on the Saints' opening game of the season. And I think just having too much for Castleford, do you reckon?
Yeah, I think, as you said, there's too many across that line that I just think are just too good for a Castleford team that we spoke about last week, maybe not as strong as you would like them to be following last season. But Darryl Powell is a great coach, and you never know that if he's applied the team well in the off-season, they could have a really strong start, but I want to see if St Helens have got what it takes, and I think they want to put down a marker, get Barber into the game, get Roby into the game, get Wormsley into the game, and get a 12-point victory on the board, make sure everybody knows that they're here seriously this season. So I think St Helens would be my pick for that game. Salford are at home to the Wigan Warriors, another game that I'm going to be going to over the weekend. I'll let you take this one to avoid my biased nature.
I've gone for a comfortable Wigan win. I think you'll be happy to know. We spoke last week, or whenever we last did it, and we spoke about Witness and KR being a couple to struggle at the bottom, but I'm not sure Salford will be too dissimilar in that respect. I think they'll be down amongst the relegation dogfight for the qualifiers, so I don't see it getting any easier on the opening day this season. I think we're going to have too much.
I was going to say similar. I think Salford will give us a challenge early doors. I think the first 20 minutes will be a bit of a dogfight. I don't think Wigan yet have the facilities to be flamboyant out the back, so I don't think a big score is going to be necessary, but I think come the 50th, 60th minute we might just have too much of them in the pack. I think Wigan will take a victory, but you never know. Salford at home, first day of the season, strange things have happened. Hull KR take on the Wakefield Trinity Wildcats at Hull KR, and that is the key factor in this game. It's at Hull KR. Can they do it? They return to the Super League. Can they knock a club off who are just improving season on season? They're up there in 5th. They were very, very unlucky not to get 4th. Can Wakefield go to Hull KR and do a job?
Like I say, I think this is probably the most intriguing of all the opening fixtures in terms of the context of the season, even more so than St Helens and Castleford, because Hull KR back on that Super League grind now, back with a home crowd. It'll be a bumper crowd, you would imagine. They'll sell it out easily. Not an easy place to go for any side. Walked it in the Championship. I can't commit to any of these results, but Wakefield I think they'll have enough from last season. Obviously, didn't end in the fashion they wanted to, but I think they'll start fast out the blocks, and I think they'll have enough to overcome a tough KR side. It won't be an easy victory by any means, but a couple of points here or there.
Yeah, I think Wakefield been strong, and they've got my favourite halfback in the entire league, Jacob Miller, at 6. I think the team is just improving season on season. They've got some young, exciting players that any club in Super League would love to have in the back line. They've got experience there to take them forward. I just think Wakefield are a really strong outfit, and that's why I always look at them to get into that 6th, 7th spot. Hull KR coming back, and they have recruited well, they have signed well, they've got Danny Maguire in the ranks now, and that sort of experience is priceless at this level. But I think that Wakefield will just have a little bit too much of them on the opening day. I think Hull KR will grow into the season, and they might get a couple of good victories later on, maybe even on Good Friday against the rivals, but I don't think this opening day fixture suits them at all. I think either a team that was at the top or a team at the bottom would have suited them. I think a mid-table team that's going to be hard to beat is going to be a tough fixture for the Hull KR. And we move on to the Sunday, which is Widnes and Catalans. This at Widnes. I can't imagine that the at Widnes part being a big factor. I think Catalans have recruited really, really well, and they're another one like the Centellians, that are going to want to start big, get in everybody's faces, make people know that let people know that they're there. I think they've got an easy victory against Widnes.
You think Catalans have got an easy victory?
Yeah.
I might go the opposite way to you on this one. I think they might fail to deliver on that opening day. Widnes might just surprise a few people. Not many people have tipped them for... Well, I haven't tipped them for anything this year, other than the bottom 2 or 3. But first game at Widnes, I know Catalans don't travel well. Everyone knows that particularly. Made some good signings, haven't they, in Mead and a couple of others. But no, I think Widnes might just do it. That's probably the one we disagree on. I'm not wholeheartedly pro Widnes. I really don't have any idea who's going to win. Opening day fixtures, you've no idea of you. It's anyone's game. It's all into a hat.
It is. And if you're a betting man, you look at these opening day fixtures and you look at the handicaps and you think, are any of these worth the money? And it's very difficult to pick a result. And I suppose that goes for all 6 of them. And for me, there's 2 clear victories, and that's Centellians and Catalan. And then the rest are going to be dogfights for the first win. And whoever gets that first win, obviously, the season starts from there. And for teams like Wigan, if they can get that first victory and then they can roll onto it and get 3 or 4 in a row early doors, people start to look at them as a contender again. And it's the same with Castleford and Hull. If they can get those early victories in, people look at them and think, right, these are going to be strong teams for this season. So it's very important for those teams to move quickly and prove that they're here to stay this year. Right, so let's move on to the Championship. We're not going to look at every single fixture from the Championship, but we are going to look at a couple of key fixtures and then make passing mentions to the rest. Obviously, the big fixture in the Championship is at Leigh Sports Village, and it's on Sunday, and it's Leigh versus Toronto. This is the key opening day fixture. Everybody wants to see how Toronto get on. Leigh have just been relegated from the Super League. It's just been designed to be a clash of the Titans. League One versus the Super League. They meet for the first time. How's it going to go down?
Like you say, it's the biggest game of the season without a doubt, and it couldn't come at a better time, could it, on the opening day when level playing field, everyone's in the same position. It just all comes down to, if you believe in it, who's had the best pre-season. Toronto, last time we were here, were rocked a little bit in the camp by those 3 departures. It's a really tough one to call. Do you buy into the magic of Toronto or do you buy into the experience of Leigh? And personally, as much as I want the Toronto experiment to work, I think Leigh will just shade it through that experience, that Super League know-how, although it didn't work out too well last year. But I think just on the opening day, it's a stretch too far for Toronto. Maybe if they had an easier run in and played them in the 4th or 5th week, it might be a different story. But Leigh are my tip for that first game.
I'm still undecided. I think Toronto, we spoke about, and they were both of our picks for the top of the Championship last time we spoke. But since then, there has been a big rock in the camp, and we spoke about it a bit on the day, but the aftermath of that seems to have affected Toronto a little bit. Leigh, on the other hand, I didn't expect to be as exciting, as exuberant as they have been. I watched the Wigan and Leigh pre-season game, and Leigh were excellent against a Wigan team that wasn't by any means a really weak Wigan team. We had a lot of substitutions, and a lot of the youngsters did come on for big minutes, but it wasn't by any stretch of the imagination a weak team for the Wigan Warriors, and Leigh were outstanding. Leigh were excellent. And if they turn up like that against any team in the Championship, they'll walk away with a victory.
Yeah, well, they're a very, very physical side, aren't they? We saw that in Super League and through the qualifiers, and I can't see any reason why that'll stop. It's just whether Toronto can match them for that physicality. It'll be interesting to see the couple of Lee lads who went over to Toronto in the off-season, see how they perform against their old club. And I think a lot of it rests on a couple of the new signings for Toronto in Macron. It'll be interesting to see how he organises and controls the game, the former NRL player, and then the likes of Westerman and Sims obviously got that excellent experience already, but can just see it a bridge too far for Toronto so early on.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's massive that Sims gets on top, and he was excellent in the World Cup for Fiji in the way that he got to the impact line and got out of the tackle really easily, got his arms loose, it gave free play, it made Fiji move around the field a bit, and I think if he does the same for Toronto, they can get on the back of that and really hurt Lee, who are, as you say, a very physical team and won't want to be seeing offloads left, right and centre. So it's very important that Sims has a big impact early doors. So we're both tipping Lee, but I think that'll be, if I'm completely honest, out of all the games in the weekend, for the neutral, that would be the one I'd recommend.
It's the least likely one you can predict.
That's on Premier Sports this weekend. I'm looking forward to watching that game. I think Lee will take it. I sort of want to see if Toronto can turn up. The other key fixture in inverted commas that we're going to look at is Featherstone and Halifax. Now, Halifax team that you work for, and Featherstone, the team that is surprising everybody in pre-season. Now, we spoke a little bit about it in the last podcast, but neither of us really picked Featherstone for the top four. Having reevaluated, looked at the squad, and had a couple of conversations with a few people, Featherstone not only look like a team in the top four, look like a team in the top three, maybe even the top two. They look a really, really strong outfit, and they're at home to Halifax for day.
It's a tough one, isn't it? They've met so many times. I've only been at Halifax for 1 year, and I think played them countless times, probably 5 or 6 times. We've met in pre-season and cups and qualifiers and normal league and summer bash. We've played them in every single thing, and each time something different happens, and I can't see it being any different. Be a really physical game. Two sides. Halifax haven't had the best of pre-seasons, but I don't think they've won a pre-season game for a long, long time. A young side put in a decent performance against Featherstone in pre-season. How much impact that will have, I'm not sure. It'll be interesting to see the squad announcements and whether there's any Castleford involvement for Halifax on the dual reg. I'm going to have to nail my colours to the wall and go for Halifax, but it's going to be a really tough game. I don't envisage being able to get much out of the game. It'll be a scrappy one if Halifax do manage to win it.
I can see why you would go for Halifax. I think Halifax are everybody's favourite other team. Halifax
it's your favourite uncle, isn't it, really?
Yeah, they're that team that you know are never going to be strong enough to get back into Super League full time, but you really want them to do well. They're always the semi-pro team that get up there and really hurt the pro teams, and you want them to do the same. I think Featherstone are going to have too much for them. I think the packet Featherstone have is of Super League quality, the Super League experience with the signing of Gareth Hock. They've got young Connor Farrell, who obviously has gone from Wigan. It was on loan at Widnes last year. So I think Featherstone will have a little bit too much for Halifax side, but it'll be a scrappy game. It'll be a close game, but I think Featherstone will get started, and off the back of that may be able to create a game plan that really, really troubles Lee and Toronto. Other games in the Championship then. We've got Dewsbury-Sheffield. I think it's safe to say a Sheffield victory there.
I'd agree.
Toulouse-Swinton. Again, Swinton are a great team. I love going to Swinton away. They had a big victory against Wigan Warriors in pre-season, but the pro side from France should take this at home. London versus Barrow. Again, we spoke about Barrow struggling. London pro team. They're going to be up there with the top four.
It looks a write-off that. That's the easiest fixture to call throughout every single one, I think. Without disrespect to Barrow.
Rochdale and Batley. I think Rochdale are going to struggle this year because I think they'll probably finish at the bottom, or at least second bottom. But Batley aren't the biggest side, but they'll be good enough to take on Rochdale and probably get a 20-point victory.
Yeah, it'd be a scrappy game, that.
Yeah.
Everything you want from your opening day fixture.
The Batterings, the Scrappy, and the Beautiful. I don't know which is which, but we'll find out. Okay, off the field. So these are all the stories that have emerged this week, or at least the picks that we think are worth mentioning. And the first one I want to start with, I was intrigued to try and bring this in last week, but I thought we'd save it and maybe talk about it in the future as well. We're talking international rugby league now, and more importantly, we're talking about the England coach. Now, there's been a lot of talk about Wayne Bennett in the last week or so. Do you think he's the right man for the job? Do you think he will take a contract? And do you think it'd be the right contract for England?
He met expectations, didn't he, in the World Cup? I think a lot of people demanded that England reach the semi-finals. To get to the final was great. I think a lot of the players have a lot of respect for him, which is obviously the important part. But there's still doubts about some of his decision-making. If you look at the makeup of that squad that went to the World Cup, there was a couple of areas lacking. There was that brief period where we thought Jermaine McGillivray might not be playing, and then it was who's going to fill in here because we've not taken the right players. But I'm pro Wayne Bennett. I think stick with him for a little longer. You've got to stick with coaches, give them time to kind of put their mark on the squad. And like we say, I think the players have kind of bought into his philosophies. He's quite a good man manager. He more than adequately did the job, and it's been an improvement on what we've seen in other years.
Bennett is the best possible choice, in my opinion. I don't think there's a coach out there that's going to be able to replace him. A lot of people are talking about Darryl Powell. He's done great at Castleford. Can he take the international team to that next step? I'm not sure. It's a different game, International Rugby League now. It's a lot more like the NRL. And back in the day, we used to be able to go as the British Lions and just play gritty English Rugby League and go through them. It's not the case anymore. They're a big enough side to cope with people like that, and we're going to have to play a more skillful game to beat them. And that, I think the World Cup final proved that. The fact that it was hard defence and good skill that won Australia the game.
Yeah, I think we've improved. The quality of rugby has definitely improved.
Yeah.
We're a much better side to watch.
Yeah.
Especially when you have to get up at 5:30 or whatever time it was to watch those.
Yeah,
World
you
Cup
want to be
games.
watching good Rugby League.
But yeah, the Wayne Bennett coach side was enjoyable Rugby League to watch. It was flamboyant. It was expressive. It wasn't like the England and the Great Britain of old where you'd grind out a gritty win, the sort of stuff you'd see on the mud bath in the lower league. It's an improving experiment, we can call it.
Yeah, I think Bennett, it's important to have him for the next World Cup, in my opinion. But Bennett himself has said he's looking at a more short-term deal. I think the international calendar is set up in a way where every other year is the important year. I mean, we're talking about mid-season tests and stuff against New Zealand and whatnot. But I feel like the second year in every international calendar is so important. And to at least have him till that Four Nations is so important, because that's the first chance we're going to be able to really step up and say, look, we've got a chance in the next World Cup that is at our place. When you come over here, we're not going to make it easy. We're going to get to another final. We're going to get really in your faces, and you're going to have to come to a ground like Anfield, like Old Trafford, like Wembley, play in front of 60,000 Englishmen that are going to sing their ass out all game. But you need the right coach in charge. Now, you said about along the lines of whether he made the right decisions at certain times. I look at the squad, and I still look back at the squad now, and I think there's 3 or 4 from the Super League that didn't deserve to get into the team. I'll be honest, before the World Cup started, I said Jeremy McGillivray was not from merit at all. So I feel like you've got to take some with others. If you looked at the Super League season, the very few people before the World Cup would have picked McGillivray because he had a very under par season for Huddersfield. But it turned out that he was the best player at the World Cup. However, there are other picks that didn't turn out that way. But can you look at Wayne Bennett for all of that? I'm not sure. Dennis Betts, has he made some calls that were incorrect, potentially? I don't know. I feel like you've got to look at the staff when you're looking at a squad pick, and it's not all down to Bennett. And Bennett doesn't know every single one of these people the same way that somebody like Dennis Betts will.
Yeah, a lot of it is subjective, isn't it? It's all perspective, who is good. I still agree, especially with what you said about the 2-year cycle. It almost makes every other year, it's not redundant in a way, but it's less important, and it's just kind of a passing period in which you have to keep hold of your man in charge. You have to keep hold of the coach to continue building to the one in the year after. Whether this year is a quieter year for England, I doubt it will be, because it's never quiet around English Rugby League and politics, but it's more important in gearing up for that 2019 tournament, and this year's just kind of an added extra. Yeah,
I think we're both pretty much in agreement that Wayne Bennett is the right man to take England forward for at least the next 2 years, hopefully the next 4 years. I feel like that's going to be announced before maybe the end of March, and we'll have a clearer picture of where Bennett will stay till. Okay, another news story that I was completely baffled by. I mean, it makes perfect sense when you think about it in the scheme of things, but it feels like a heartbreak. Toronto announced a sort of dual reg feeder partnership with the Bradford Bulls. Is this a massive shame, or is this just something necessary?
I struggled to get my head around it. I don't think anyone really saw it coming. It seemed like, not a daft decision, but it was very much out of the blue. Perhaps it's just a way of trying to get Bradford back to where they feel they should be. Is that the overall game?
Yeah, I'm trying to read into it more and more, and I'm trying to work out whether it's a case of it's a partnership in terms of Toronto when they're over here can use the facilities, can use the pitch, use basically the Bradford brand to train and to get the right people in, or whether it is a case of a dual reg like you were saying with Halifax have with Castleford, that Swinton have with Wigan, and the players will be just lended to Bradford to play. If it's the latter, I look at Bradford and I think this was a club, having been brought up in the noughties, and I used to fear playing Bradford. I remember going to the 2003 grand final. I think we got absolutely battered by Bradford, and I was like 8, 9, and I was just sat there thinking.
Is that before or after the 1981 one with Saints?
That was before.
Yeah.
I think I'm not 100% sure which dates.
That was the first game I ever went to with Bradford.
Bradford with this side that, I don't know, you just looked at it and I still think it's the best Super League team there's ever been. I think you look at that side and you just look at it and you think, wow. From 1 to 13, there's not a weak link, and some of the best players that's ever played in the Super League included Leslie Vanacolo, Paul Deacon, Justin Harris, some of the great players. Now they're in League One after 6 or 7 awful seasons for a Bradford fan. And they've signed this dual reg with a club that realistically have come over because they've got the money. And it seems like a kick in the teeth to me.
It's almost ironic, isn't it, that one club's got the money and the other one's had the money problems, and they find themselves almost, you imagine in the next couple of years, if Toronto do get promoted, it'll be a case of role reversal. Bradford will be lingering around the Championship, League One mark, won't they still? And Toronto will be up there. But I think both parties, depending on what, like you say, whether it's a dual reg or whether it's just a gentleman's agreement to help each other out, are getting different things out of it. Whether Toronto were subconsciously using it as a way to kind of push their brand, I don't know whether linking up with the most successful or one of the most historic British Rugby League clubs will really help their image. It sort of swings towards the dual reg partnership, and I find that really difficult to understand from both perspectives almost, because especially in the latter part of the season, if Toronto are back over in Canada, then that's a lot of travelling and a lot of work to make a couple of appearances happen in Bradford.
It almost makes perfect sense, but no sense at all. So we're talking about the Super League once more. This is the final segment once again, and this is where we get you guys to talk to us, give us your opinions. So I posted an article about a week ago, or a few days ago at least, asking who you wanted to be your Man of Steel, or who you think will be Man of Steel. Now this post got a few interesting responses. First and foremost, the Sam Tompkins picture attached to it. I don't think many people like that. I think that was good advertisement by myself to try and get people talking. But people did get talking, and people weren't happy with the outside chance that Tompkins could get a Man of Steel. But there's some interesting picks. We'll go with Stephen John. Thinks if Saints go well, Barber and Roby have got good chances. Adam Cam, he's going for Ben Barber as well. We were talking about this before we started Saints chances. Another one here, Lynn Waring, Walmsley. We said if Saints go well, they were both our picks for Super League. Saints go well, you've got to look at Roby, you've got to look at Walmsley, you've got to look at Ben Barber. They'll be the players that influence the team more than anybody else. If Saints go and win the Super League, are they the guys that are going to win Man of Steel?
I think you look at Walmsley, big powerhouse, and you look at Roby as my two. Remains to be seen how Barber does on his comeback from suspension, but Roby's the big one for me. When Saints aren't playing well, invariably it's Roby who grabs the game by the scruff of the neck, has a little burst under the post, scores a try that changes the complexion of the game, and quite often it's the complexion of the season as well. He's a big game player, controls the game well, and if Saints are up there's no reason why it wouldn't be from the work of James Roby. And the same with Alex Walmsley in that respect. He's a big ball carrier, had a great season last season, and he can only build on that. I
completely agree. I think Walmsley is, if I was going to pick a Saints player off the bat, Walmsley would be my pick. I think he was outstanding last season. I don't understand how he didn't get more recognition for the work that he did last year, but I think this year will be his year. So a couple more. We've got Adam Crawforth, curveball, outside the box, Mickey Pyer, a Hull player. We're talking about Hull players. There's another comment up here. Stu Gaddin, he's looking at the betting odds, and Albert Kelly last year was 35-1, he's saying, and obviously he finished second. And he's saying this year Jake Connor is a good shout. Now, again, we talked about Hull being a possible team up there in the semi-finals, and if Hull go well, surely Mickey Pyer is a very important player, but Jake Connor could be a key cog just a season after he got released from Huddersfield.
Yeah, I read a piece in midweek, and I think Bradford was saying that this is it's an important time for Jake Connor now. He could push on and be a really, really good player. He could just be nothing more than a decent squad player, and I think that's really up to him. It'll be a really interesting season for Connor and Hull.
I think the only other choice that has been mentioned in the comments that isn't about Sam Tompkins not being good enough to win Man of Steel is from Mark Galone Jr., Ben Murdoch-Masila. He's a player that everyone's going to look at, and the reason that I don't think he'll win Man of Steel is because there's going to be so much pressure on his shoulders. And it's very, very, very rare you see players that have so much pressure that everyone expects to be one of the best in the league goes and wins Man of Steel. The only time that really happens is when it's the greats. I mean, the greats of the game. Ben Murdoch-Masila, maybe in the years to come, might have one of those years. I don't think it'll be this year, but he will have a good season. I think he'll push Warrington forward, but I think Warrington have a good enough squad to play around him and not necessarily through him. Well, that's everything for this podcast. Thank you to everybody that's got in touch via Facebook, Twitter, and do keep your comments coming about this podcast and let us know your thoughts and what you want to hear. But that's everything for this week, so thanks for listening.